Hi and welcome back to the channel. My name is Nicole with morningchores.com, and today we're going to show you how to harvest onions. If you missed our how to plant onions, I will link that video in the description box below, but it's hard to believe we're finally here at the harvest stage. Onions are very similar to garlic, so if you missed our how to harvest garlic video, I will also link that in the description box, but there are some subtle differences, so stay tuned. Onions are usually ready for harvest at the beginning to middle of summer. It really depends on the variety and what time of year you planted them. Another cool thing about onions is you can do successional planting with them, which I will be talking in an upcoming video. Signs that your onions are ready for harvest is number one, they will start laying down. So their tall, strong stalks will start falling to the side and laying down on the ground. The second sign is the leaves will start turning brown and have a paper-like consistency. The third sign that your onions are ready for harvest is they will stop growing. So pay attention to the leaves and the stalks. In order to harvest your onions, you may need to use a spade or a shovel, and if you do need to use these tools, be very gentle as you're working around the bulb as not to damage it. Now, if you are doing the back to Eden garden method, the soil should be loose enough that you can pull it away with your hands and then just pull gently on the onion and it should easily pull out of the dirt. Now that we've harvested our onions, the next step is drying them, and you don't want to skip out on this step. It's very important because it will ensure that your onions keep in storage for longer periods of time. Drying your onions is as simple as laying them out in your garden for a day in full sun, but in order to do this, you need to make sure there is no rain in the forecast because they cannot get damp or wet under any circumstances. So only if it's full sun can you lay them out in your garden for a day. If there is rain in the forecast, then you can lay them out on tables lined with newspaper in your garage or a shed or someplace outside in the warm climate, but yet covered to keep them out of the rain. We are getting a full sun day today. There is no rain in the forecast, so I'm gonna go ahead and lay them out in the garden. You can use something as simple as these wire racks and lay them on that. If you're doing the back to Eden garden method with the wood chips though, you can just lay them right on the wood chips. The wood chips are dry enough that there's not gonna be any moisture drawn to the onions. When laying out your bulbs, you want to make sure that they are not touching each other. It's fine if the leaves touch each other, but we don't want those bulbs touching each other so that they have good circulation. Another option is to lay these wire racks on the ground and then put your onions on top of those. This is a good way to keep the onions off the ground if the ground is even a little bit moist from rain or dew. If you don't have any wire racks, just use a wooden box, cardboard boxes, whatever you have laying on hand, it will work and get the job done. That's it for the drying process, super simple. So we will see you back here this evening to continue on with the curing process. My onions have finished drying, so now it's time to move on to the curing process. To make sure that your onions are dried enough, you want to feel the outer layer of the onion. It should have a dry, papery feel. I've got one of my onions right here, and can you hear that paper sound? That's a sign that it has dried enough and we're ready to move on to the curing process. So we are standing here in my shed. You want to cure your onions in a hot, dry place, but you also want a place that has good circulation. So I'm using my shed because it pretty much feels like the outside inside my shed, which is what I want. It's hot and dry. There's no moisture in here, but I also have my windows open so that there is good circulation as well. So these are some key things you want to think about when you're choosing your place to cure your onions. If you don't have a shed, you can always use a garage. Basements are a little tricky because they tend to be too cool and too moist. If you don't have a garage or a shed or something like that, you can cure your onions indoors on your first floor. I would just choose a room that maybe is a little bit warmer than the rest of your house. And if you have air conditioning, shut those vents and maybe crack open the window so that there's good circulation, but yet it's hot and dry. That is the key. You want hot and dry. So what you want to do is set up a table. I have my garden workbench here, and you can layer it with newspaper, or you can use some type of wire cooling rack, mesh rack. I have these. I have this little lip here so that it can stand up and there's circulation getting underneath. This isn't necessary. Don't feel like you have to go buy something in order to do this. Simply just layering some newspaper on a table will be sufficient enough. The next step is laying out your onions, and just like when we dried them out in the garden, you want to lay them out in a way so that they're not touching each other. It's okay if the leaves touch each other, but you don't want the bulbs touching each other. You want to make sure there's good circulation around each bulb. If you are laying these on newspaper like I'm doing right now, then you may want to come every couple of days and just rotate them like this, so that way they're not laying on the same side for the entire curing process. Thank you so much for joining me in today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. You can look forward to how to store your onions in an upcoming video. You can also head over to morningchores.com where you'll find all kinds of information on homesteading, gardening, DIY, and much, much more. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time.